Jean-Claude, over to you. Thank you very much.
Well, yes. Good evening. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I've decided to go with a few questions that we've prepared with the panel. And the first question goes to our host in Thailand, Tanun from GIT. GIT is a government gems and jewelry industry institution, seems to have taken the lead in Thailand with regard to responsible sourcing policy. Can you describe briefly the main GIT criteria, position and involvement in this ethical behavior concept?
Okay, so thank you very much for the question. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon for everyone. So as the GIT is the national authority for gem and jewelry in Thailand, so we have main duty to provide a testing service for gemstone, jewelry, and also precious metal. And besides that, we also have the training. We have to provide public trainings for the public, and also we are doing a lot of research for past decades, intensively for color stone on the treatment and on the origins. And also we have another duty to help the government to give the policies in terms of policies. So for the aspect of the responsible sourcing, that is become the trend in the last several years. The whole industry is talking about this topic every stage, every event. We're talking the same thing. As for Thailand, since Thailand is the center of the color stone trainings, we are now trying very hard to promote this kind of practice into the industry. But as the law is not like we can force them to do. So the thing that we did, we are try to do the thing that we promote them. Firstly, when we talking about the upstream industry of the rough stone, it is quite a little bit difficult because of the nature of the business there is still very fragmented, as you mentioned, and it's very difficult to convince them to follow the trend. The thing that we do, in the last 2 years, we are running one project that we call the Buy with Confidence. That is, we try to focus mainly on the downstream business. We are thinking about how to promote this kind of thing to the industry. It should be start with the consumer side. So we start this project. We set up the criteria for the company who want to involve in this project. We have certain very strict criteria. Until now, we have about 300 members already, and the members come from every sector in the jewelry, from the dealers, from the jeweler, from the retailer jeweler. So what we promote to them is when we acquire them as the members, we provide a lot of privilege. The privilege is in terms of the training, in terms of the testing fee. You can get very special rate for testing. And we also combine the PR. We do a lot of PR of the project to the public. We go to every fair, every gem show, every event. We promote this project. And the thing that when we do this, and it's open to the public, and most of the people in the industry starting to aware of this thing. So recently we got a lot of the new members coming, because at the beginning of the project we try to promote, but when the people don't see the benefits to join, they have very difficult to enter to be our members. So now the number is going up and up every month. We got several new members. So this is the thing that we have been done for last several years. And also we combine the technology a little bit with this project. because all of the report that we issue through this project, they will have the system that we created the QR code. The QR tag will attach with the jewelry. And the jeweler or the dealers, you can show your stuff together with the tag, and then they can access to our database to see the report. This is genuine. This is to improve the confidence of the consumer, because that's now is for sure we cannot go to that the real upstream business. This is what we have done so far.
Okay, so responsible sourcing of colored gems, including sapphire entering Thailand, is tightly linked to artisanal small-scale mining with origin mostly in African countries.
Yeah.
What is the GIT approach to the challenge posed by artisanal small-scale mining?
In this aspect, we have also have the research project. We are trying to reach to the origin, to the mine, to see how the people is do mining, and we also have to have the system to create the database of the gemstone scientifically, because of at the end, when we talking about the origin, it's difficult to trace back in terms of the business way. So we have to use scientific way to identify. At least we can say this is from which origin.
Okay, thank you, Tanon. I have a question not for Stefan. As I say, directors is also in the compliance and sustainability expert, and is a miner with a Devanto in mine in Namibia. Second generation miner, to say. How has the colored stone mining sector evolved in Namibia regarding the artisanal small-scale mining versus the mechanized mining? And what are the present challenges regarding responsible sourcing from Namibia?
Thank you, Jean-Claude. First of all, thank you for being here, such a jammy audience, so many friends. Namibia, gemstone mining in Namibia hasn't much evolved over the last centuries, actually. It's dominated by small-scale mechanized mining. Yeah? The vast majority of acid-grade gemstones which reach the market are mined by small companies who have access to earth-moving equipment. We don't have many artisanal miners because Namibia is mostly hard rock, hard rock material, hard rock overburden. So if you work with a hammer, a shovel, and a pick, you will really just scratch the surface. Yeah? But on the long run, it's economically not sustainable. Namibia tries to attract funds steering in the colored gemstone section to provide a higher degree of mechanization which is needed to mine it. But they fail a little bit to do so on implementing it. Yeah? So basically you have a few small-scale mines, some of them, especially in our area, in Dementoid, some in Tourmaline and Mandarin Garnet area, you have the potential to upscale production, but it's often a lack of funds due to difficulties of attracting foreign investment.
Okay, so how does the Namibian government addresses mechanized mining and foreign companies, for instance, in Namibia?
Well, the mining law in Namibia, the regulatory framework, is actually very good. Yeah, you have 7 types of mineral licenses, which is suitable from really small-scale artisanal, for small-scale artisanal miners, up to large-scale mining. A big percentage of the GDP of Namibia is due to mining, mostly uranium, gold, also diamonds. But when it comes to colored gemstones, they try to, for political reasons actually, to keep it artisanal. Yeah? And there is the problem, because purely artisanal work, mining, like it's been done in Sri Lanka successfully, won't work in Namibia.
Okay, very good. How do you see the colored gemstone supply chain going in Namibia?
Well, the supply is very flat. compared to other countries. It's not that fragmented. You have a few producers, small-scale producers, who sell directly often to foreign buyers. And material you see on the secondary market is often either reject material or stolen material. So theft is a problem in Namibia.
Your mine, I mean, Green Diamond Mine is a small mine, but
Yes.
it's mechanized. How would you describe your mining operation?
Well, we have over 500 hectares. And yes, it's an open pit mine. It's a mechanized mine. We have around 15 people working for us, so it's a small mine. But we drill, we blast, we excavate the ore, and we have a processing plant. We can process about 30 tons an hour. It's never been used to that extent. And then the gems are either dismantled manually and sent further to sorting. We are vertically integrated. So we mine and we cut, outsourced with good, reliable partners. And our strength is really traceability of the goods, and also that Namibia is a low-risk country from a responsible sourcing point of view. We have no armed conflict. We don't have any human rights abuses, so we are fine in this perspective. Yeah.
Okay, from that perspective, what tools would you consider pertinent to assure ethical and responsible origin?
In Namibia?
Yeah, in your operation, for instance, or in general?
Well, I think artisanal mining in general, they are the weakest members of our supply chain. So every measure we take must include them. It must be inclusive. Yeah? It needs common standards.
Excuse me, I didn't say artisanal miner. I said consider pertinent to assure ethical and responsible mining and origin.
Common standards,
Yeah.
better education, capacity building. I think blockchain to prove the provenance of goods makes sense for many mining operations because it can be cost effective and easy to implement. But in the end, we as an industry have to work together with stakeholders to find a common language where everyone agrees and knows what is responsible, what is sustainable, and to reduce the misuse of these words.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. And now I will ask a question to Anthony Brook, who has two hats. He's the CEO of Richland and he's the vice president of the Thai Gems and Jewelry Trader Association. So, Anthony, first question is, as Richland large mechanized mine, how does such a mine approaches the responsible sourcing of sapphire that have been traditionally commercialized through Thailand? Can you give us a history and evolution of the source and destination of the rough?
Well, thank you, Jean-Claude, and thank you everybody here for being here for this panel discussion. It's considerably easier for us, bearing in mind we're mining in Australia. It's a developed country with strong laws and regulations in place. To even open a mine site in Australia costs a huge amount of money. You've got to be complicit throughout the whole process. We've got 12 employees. We have safety officers when they come. They get signed in and out when they arrive in the morning, when they leave in the afternoon. They have very regulated plans of work. The tracking of equipment, for instance, the safety regulations have to be really tightly followed. These are the sort of things that you gain when you are able to work in a developed country. I think Warren will be able to mention this again with the Montana. It's very similar. The downside of that is, of course, the cost effectiveness of the operation. The cost of production is much larger than, to be quite frank, being able to employ 20 or 30 artisanal miners, as I used to do in Tanzania. I had a ruby and sapphire mine in Tanzania for 7 years. There, the cost of production was much lower. You could literally physically have workers working in, to be quite frank, situations that were not particularly safety conscious. But that's another story. As far as Australia is concerned, the production primarily is completely socially responsibly sourced. CSR is crucial. The client base that I established here in Thailand required, in fact, that we would have to sign a 12-page disclaimer ensuring that all the stones that we produced and supplied to these two given companies were complicit throughout, because they, having then cut the stones here in Thailand, would be selling them to the brands in Europe, and the brands, of course, required absolute traceability. And this is something that's very close to my heart. As you mentioned, my other hat, which is Vice President of the Thai Gem and Jewellery Trade Association. Now, I'm hoping through the cooperation of Nawal sitting here, the Responsible Jewellery Council, that over the coming years we will be able to, cooperation between the TGJTA and RJC, find a way to bring on board as many of the small artisanal traders, dealers in Canterbury and indeed in Bangkok, so that they are complicit. Because at the moment, I'm afraid, and I've been in Thailand 38 years, a lot of Thai traders still seem to think, well, it's not going to happen. We'll find a way around it. Traditionally, we've always been able to do that. That's finished. Cash is already a sick word. You can't use cash. It's not going to be long before everybody has to be complicit, and I want to ensure that over the next 3 to 5 years, all of the small dealers in Canterbury are able to fit into the regulations that will be required to sell to the major markets in the world.
Well, you already responded to the next question that I had for you, which was, as Vice President of TGTDA, you represent a myriad of Thai gems and jewelry companies. How do your members apprehend responsible sourcing, and what is their main challenge? You've already
I pretty much answered it. I don't want to take up too much time. We've got more people to talk. God, I'm even berating myself about timekeeping. Dear, oh dear.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
No, there are challenges here because of the fact that it's been so easy, well, relatively easy throughout my career for dealers to just jump on a plane, fly around the world, hand carry into particular markets, sell their goods, get a bundle of cash and fly back home again. And I'm afraid that mentality is still in place here. It's still in place. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. We do have, fortunately, companies such as Kunprida's, Pranda Gems and Jewelry, who are leading the way to ensure that responsible sourcing is taking place. But it's getting that level of leadership down to the lower echelons of the industry. And this is a problem that I know Thailand has right now. India certainly has it as well. Many countries have it. It's not an easy task, but we have to start somewhere, and these types of forums will help to get that message across.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, now Warren, geologist, patented mine, high executive, Montana Sapphire. You represent a large mechanized sapphire mine in Montana, USA. How does it feel to be mining from a safe, regulated, and ethical country of origin by definition?
Well, again, thank you, everyone, for allowing me to sit up here and talk, and then to answer Jean-Claude's question. Well, I've been to many countries in the world and involved in colored gemstone and diamond mining, and I have to confess that Montana is probably one of the easier ones to operate within. The regulatory environment's straightforward. We don't have to pay royalties, believe it or not, unlike Canada, on diamond mining in Canada. And other countries in the world, royalties are paid. Once you own the private property, it's your private property, it's sacrosanct. We also apply for small miners exclusion permits, which allow us to disturb, about 5 acres at a time and have to rehabilitate before we move past 5 acres. So it's quite easy to operate within that environment. And we're gifted with a project there that all the sapphires occur in colluvium and alluvium. In other words, we don't have to mine any hard rock. Water is a problem, so we have to deal with that, and we have to deal with regulatory environment regarding what's called water rights. And because of that, we recycle our water as well. And so I would say by comparison to other countries I've worked in different parts of the globe, it's great.
Well, and then in that case, how do your company addresses responsible sourcing downstream?
Well, downstream, we don't do the complicated 12-page agreements with our clients, but we do warranty and allow our clients to promote a brand which we have as Rock Creek Sapphires, which is a trademark brand in North America. Some of our clients specifically cut in North America and have their own brand that they're working within. But we provide certificates and can provide the control and certificates of origin on the goods to anybody who requests it. And now, if in sometime in the near future we become a member of RJC, then we'd be subject to the audits.
That was my next question. My next question was, have you ever felt the need to enter into an insurance for ethical behavior, or do you consider responsible sourcing practices certification?
Well, yeah, we have no problem entering into an agreement. The only attitude we had, we were just sort of sitting back and seeing what is it going to be like, what will be the regulations, and many of our clients like our project because of the fact that it's, first of all, it's a sourcing of material within the United States, so we have some clients who like the American brand. As Paula alluded to earlier, she's doing some of our pieces. And most of the clients who are buying our rough are selling it as American.
Okay, well then, thank you very much, Warren. Now it comes to Nawal, who's here, RJC Strategic Advisor for Standards in Assurance. First question, RJC, let me go to that slide. Oh, by the way, I forgot to change the slide.
Oh.
Just a few seconds. This is the extent of the Montana sapphire mine and the patented mine. So this is a small operation, really. You see, this is one very basic mechanized mining, and it's not a very big land either. So we're talking about mechanized mine, not a medium and small mine. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
15. We have 15 employees.
15 employees, and then discussing with Warren, I don't think this is a secret, they're talking about $4 million business in a year, so this is not a big business. So now, RJC launched earlier in April the Code of Practice for Colored Gemstone. I'm not sure that the audience has followed or understood in details the meaning and contents of the COP. Can you please briefly explain?
Sure. Thank you, Jean-Claude, and thank you for the invitation to join this panel. So let me start with a few words of background on the RJC. RJC stands for the Responsible Jewelry Council. It's a non-for-profit organization that was created in 2005 by the industry for the industry. Its objective was to establish a standard and independent certification for responsible practices throughout the jewelry supply chain, from mine to retail. It started with 14 founding members in 2005, and it has reached over 1,200 members at the last count. It covers, as I said, all parts of the business, small, medium, and large companies. 60%, more than 60% of the membership is made of SMEs. The main standard of the RJC is the Code of Practices that Jean-Claude mentioned. This code goes through extensive consultation for the development and revision. It is revised every 5 years. That's part of the obligations of the RJC to do it. And as I said, it goes through very extensive public consultation, so anyone can contribute to the code. Being a member, not a member, an NGO, a government.
Okay, my next question would be, the procedures and compliance for certifications seems to be a complex and costly process. Could you explain briefly how this works?
Yes. Just a short summary on the Code of Practices. The Code of Practices is not about traceability. It's about business practices. It's about a member's practices. And it covers 3 main areas. Business ethics, that's what you all do in your daily business, complying with law, complying with anti-money laundering regulation, anti-bribery and corruption. The second part is is basic supply chain policies and practices, such as health and safety, labor contracts, labor terms, human rights. And the third part of it is environmental performance. Again, things that you do every day in your businesses, such as toxic management, water management, energy. The certification, I agree with Jean-Claude that it looks, or it may look very complex at first sight, but it is not. It is not a pass or fail exercise. It is not an exercise where you end up either being good or bad. It is a certificate, it is a journey. It's a journey of continuous improvement. So it's, the certification of the RJC provides an independent, credible, internationally recognized evidence that a member has implemented policies, procedures, and management systems for the responsible practices, to improve its responsible practices.
Is it costly?
It is not that costly when you look at the figures that are on the screen. It's, if you take, there is a way to calculate it based on an annual relevant sales. So it's not the entire turnover. If part of the turnover of a company does not relate to gold, diamond, colored stones, PGMs, or silver, this is not included. So you take this relevant revenue, and whether you are a miner or a retailer, you will pay $60 per million revenue. And the rest of the industry, trader, cutter, polisher, manufacturer, will pay $40 per million.
Are there any...
And there is, a minimum fee of $790 per annum.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is some clarification. Are there any guidelines or help tools being developed for potential certified members?
Yes, of course. The code comes with a lot of guidance. There are specific guidance that explicit each section of the code, provide examples, sample policies, Q&As on how to implement them. There is a self-assessment workbook that any member and non-members, I have to say that all the documents are publicly available on the RJC website. So the self-assessment, you can tailor it and customize it depending on where you sit in the supply chain. There's also training for members, training for auditors, and assessment workbooks for auditors.
Okay, now well, you've heard the concern of small, medium businesses, including the artisanal small-scale mining sector, that need to be part of the responsible sourcing. How is RJC adjusting to these concerns and the majority of small stakeholders?
As I mentioned, more than 60% of the membership of the RJC is comprised of small and medium enterprises. A quick example, Switzerland makes 12% of the RJC's membership, and not all Swiss companies are big companies. There are some big watch companies, but most of the members are small members in the watch industry, stone setting, etc. And they are all certified, and it's not that complicated when you start it. And to take this into consideration, RJC is developing toolkits for SMEs, dedicated to SMEs and dedicated to colored stone enterprises, with a distinction and customization of the different activities in the supply chain.
SMEs is for
small and medium
enterprises. Does it take artisan into consideration?
Well, the code and the certification is for everyone in the supply chain. We recognize that it is a challenge for artisan and small-scale miners to get certified. That's why we will be working with, in collaboration with other organizations and any volunteer within this room on specific tools for ASM in order to include them better.
How many pilot projects do you have in motion so far?
There's one big pilot project for the implementation of the due diligence guidance. The RJC has beefed up adjust its due diligence guidance in the new Code of Practices to align with the OECD due diligence requirements. And we have launched a due diligence pilot for the implementation of this clause in the colored stone and diamond sectors. We have called for volunteers. We've already received 15 expressions of interest of members and non-members. This is open also to non-member companies. So 15 volunteers from the colored stone and diamond industry. This will come with specific toolkit, very detailed step-by-step guide with examples, sample policies, sample documents on how to implement it. And if I may add a few words, Jean-Claude, I launch a call. Anyone who would like to join this pilot project or contribute to the Colored Stone Small and Medium Size Enterprise Toolkit is welcome to talk to Kinjal or myself. We would be very happy to hear from you.
And my last question would be, how many members from the colored gemstone sector does RGC has, and how many are certified so far?
So among the existing membership, there are a number of companies that have colored stone in scope, but they were never certified because there was no standard for that. But now that the standard is out, these companies, like a number of traders, cutters and polishers, retailers and manufacturers, will be able to get certified. And we have received, since the publication of the code in April this year, a number of applications from companies and trade organizations like GIT that are specific to colored stone, and the first certification will be coming in the next months or so.
Thank you, Nawal. Now, Rui, everybody knows Rui, is Portugal Gemas. He's also the Vice President of the Coral Commission at CIBJO. Coral is a biogenic gem that has been used for many centuries. Can you briefly explain the historical evolution of this endangered species?
Yeah.
Which is what I call it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. I love being again next to the ICF family. Feels really good. So let me, first of all, have the opportunity, because of your great questions, to clarify. When we talk in the jewelry industry, when we say coral, we must know exactly what we mean. We have thousands of coral species. Some of them live in the coral reefs down in the Pacific, and they are facing endangerment because of ocean acidification and climate change. And we have precious corals. Precious corals are only eight species down from thousands of species. So in the jewelry industry, if we say coral, we must exactly know what we are talking about. And those 8 species, as defined by the World Jewelry Confederation, CIBJO, those 8 species are not considered endangered. Having said that, and I can elaborate on that later on, the history of the use of coral goes back almost 10,000 years ago in the Mediterranean. It started as an organized fishing activity by fishermen in 2,000 years ago. And for centuries, it only happened in the Mediterranean on one species, which is, today we call it Sardinian coral. The Latin name is Corallium rubrum. I don't want to bore you with the technicalities. Only in the 19th century did the consistent harvesting or fishing of Asian Pacific corals started. First in Japan in the second half of the 19th century, then it was in Taiwan in the early 20th century, and in Hawaii, which is the United States, in the 1960s. Then eventually, by the 80s, 90s, Hawaiian coral is not harvested anymore, and today it's primarily harvested in the Mediterranean, in Japan, and in Taiwan.
Okay. Coral has now become protected and highly regulated. Please explain the importance of origin and the procedures of protocols regulating the collection, sourcing, and responsible supply chains, which is a traditionally artisanal activity.
Yes, that's a very important point. Coral harvesting and coral manufacturing is essentially artisanal. I don't know how many Italians are in the audience, but Torre del Greco, which is a fishing village near Naples, is waiting for a decision by UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science and Cultural Organization, for naming it a cultural heritage of the world, like a World Heritage Place, because of coral fishing and because of coral manufacturing. So that really shows that a lot of fishing communities and a lot of artistic communities, they are dependent upon coral harvesting and coral manufacture. We go to Taiwan, is the same thing, not as old. We go to Koshi in Japan, we have similar situations. So yes, it's a totally artisanal fishing, let alone the manufacturing. Regarding regulations, almost 20, 30 years ago, more effectively in the last 10 years, a lot of countries have effectively started to enforce and implement fishing regulations. For instance, harvesting seasons, the quantities and quotas, the sizes of the coral that can be harvested. Let me give you an example. In the Mediterranean for millennia, coral was dragged from the bottom of the seabed. Today, dragging is forbidden. It's only done by scuba diving below 50 meters, and whoever of you makes diving, you know that 50 meters and under is technical diving. You need a special license to do it. And you have quotas, you have specific months of the year to harvest, and you cannot harvest smaller than 7 millimeters on the base of the trunk. So regulations have been implemented because it was acknowledged by everybody, including the trade, that the resources needed to be managed. And that took in 2008, 2009, it brought CITES, that I can talk about to you later, into the play, and it changed a little bit for 4 of those 8 precious coral species. So yes, it's the regulations are implemented in each country, and they differ from country to country, and you have international also trade regulations, mostly by CITES.
Okay, how would you compare the coral history to the ongoing adjustment of the cousin industry, the coral gemstone sector?
That's a very interesting and intellectual exercise that we can do over here, and there are similarities and there are major differences. The major differences is that coral, even if it is in decades, you can renovate the seabed with coral depending on the species. It can take from 20 to 40 years. In minerals, when you harvest it, when you catch them, they are no more. So the coral or biogenic materials, they tend to renovate. So it's endless, the possibilities. And it's also a material that occasionally is treated, and that treatment must be disclosed. Some of those processes are not considered treatments. For instance, surface waxing, colorless surface waxing, is not considered a treatment in coral because it's a regular lapidary process. And you also have disclosure policies for coral treatments, as we have for coral gemstones. Regarding the trade, most of the issues regarding the trade and regarding also customs, and customs is a major player. The various customs around the world are major players here. CIBJO has released a coral customs guide to educate and to train customs officials to understand coral. Coral gemstones occasionally had very specific issues, mainly because of Myanmar and the United States in the past, and some of those measures had to be implemented. And if we go to the diamond trade, we have the Kimberley process. So in every trade in the borders, you have collection of data, verification, etc., which is rather different than in coral gemstone industry, which is pretty much fragmented. Diamond not fragmented. The coral industry is not that fragmented because it's geographically, you have species that are typical for different geographies. So it's kind of not easy, but it's challenging to identify the species, know which one are regulated and which one needs documentation to cross borders, and there you go. There is no, it's a no-brainer after all.
The coral sector is regulated and by an organism called CITES. Would you explain what CITES is? Because people in the colored gemstone may not be very familiar. And also, if the trade practices regulated by CITES are a benefit for the sector, or if it has a value, or if it's a difficulty and a burden.
That's an important issue. CITES, it's the International Convention for the Trade of Endangered Species of Fauna and Flora. It's also called the Washington Convention. It was implemented worldwide in 1978, if I remember well. And what it does, it convenes every 3 years to among scientists and people from the biology sector to understand which species are endangered and which species need special protection, very special protection, or just monitoring. CITES has 3 levels of protection. Has Appendix 1, which is the most restrictive, meaning that the species are really endangered. And then you can see on the Appendix 1, we see, for instance, African elephant ivory, we see tortoise shell from the sea turtles, and so it's forbidden to trade on those species unless if it is for scientific issues. Then you have Appendix 2, which are species that are not necessarily endangered, but if steps are not made towards the management of the resource, they may become endangered. And on Appendix 2, you have the narwhal ivory, you have black coral, which is not a precious coral, it's a common coral, but black coral is on Appendix 2. And then you have Appendix 3. Appendix 3 doesn't mean that the species are endangered. In fact, Appendix 3 is implemented at the request of one country, and for precious corals it was China that requested it, and that request means that they are asking help for other countries to collect information, to have data, to have statistics, because every CITES listed species needs a documentation, and those companies need to be registered to be able to trade. Why? So the international organizations can collect information and have metrics, have statistics. And it's challenging to have statistics. Now with the Kimberley process for diamonds, we can have statistics. But with normal colored gemstones, it's really hard to have stats because custom codes do not provide us those stats. And CITES regulations enable for those CITES listed species, which are 4, 2 of them haven't been harvested for decades. So basically it's for 2 species, which is the Japanese deep red coral and the Taiwanese and Japanese light pink and the so-called angel skin. Those need documents to cross borders, and that's it. It's not forbidden. You just need to have those documents to do it. Regardless the burden, it depends on the customs, basically, because customs are the ones implementing those measures. And if customs have training, and here training is so important, education is so important, if they have training and if they understand the issues, if they don't treat coral as those 7,000 species, but they understand the 2 precious corals that are listed, they may do things better. But sometimes it's a bureaucratic burden depending on the country, and some customs officers, they don't understand the issue, and training and education is really important on that.
I understand, because I know that at this moment it is a burden.
Yeah.
Now, is that beneficial enough to live with that burden?
It depends on the perspective. We can collect data, and we know that as a biogenic gem material, and since corals, you need to reforest. You need 20 years, 30 years, 40 years with no fishing to reforest the seabed. Because of that, if there is no regulation whatsoever, I mean, people will fish everything. So fishing regulations and CITES is beneficial. Also, it reduces the quantity of coral on the market naturally, and offer and demand is affected. So sometimes prices come up because of that. So you can you can see it from the business perspective, from the sustainability perspective, and business and sustainability, they must go together. So you must find the balance.
Thank you, Rui. Well, I want to thank you all, friend panelists. Now, I have an announcement to make. Damien Cody, who is Vice President of ICA, has an announcement to make on a new initiative coming from ICA regarding the ethical behavior, and you will see what the membership can gain with ICA.